There are books that inform you, books that amuse you, books that flatter you, and books that quietly alter the structure of your own perception. John Berger's Ways of Seeing belongs to the last category. It is not merely a book about art. It is a book about power, about class, about sex, about vanity, about advertising, about the strange and rather humiliating fact that many of us go through life imagining we are looking freely, when in truth, our vision has already been tutored, arranged, and colonized. Berger's great provocation was not simply that paintings mean things. Even a provincial museum guide could manage that much. His claim was more dangerous. It was that how we see is never innocent. That is why Ways of Seeing still matters. It first appeared in 1972 as a BBC series, and then a book, and it argued that images are never just objects of passive appreciation. They are bound up with the social order that produced them, the technologies that reproduce them, and the ideologies that teach us what to admire. Now, this may sound obvious in the dreary modern way in which everything sounds obvious, once a serious person has already done the thinking. But Berger's achievement was to make visible what polite culture preferred to keep hidden. He took the museum hush, the reverent tone, the cultivated murmur of great works, and he interrupted it with a scandalously simple question. Who benefits from teaching us to look this way? That question is dynamite, because the moment you ask it, painting is no longer sealed off from life. The image becomes evidence, evidence of what a society worships, what it fears, what it eroticizes, what it sells, what it conceals. Art is no longer a sanctuary floating above human struggle. It is implicated in the struggle. And Berger was right to insist on that. He was responding, in part, to more traditional television art history of his day, especially Kenneth Clark's Civilization. And he pushed in the opposite direction, away from mystical reverence and toward demystification. He wanted people to see that the old master painting, the female nude, the advertisement, the reproduced image, all belong to systems of value and power. This remains necessary because modern life is drenched in images and almost entirely unserious about what they are doing to us. We flatter ourselves that we live in an enlightened age because the image is everywhere, as if quantity were the same as wisdom. We have screens in our pockets, feeds in our hands, endless visual access to beauty, horror, propaganda, vanity, fashion, war, pornography, self-presentation, and manufactured desire. We are looking all day. But are we seeing? That is Berger's question. And he would, I think, be unsparing about our answer. Because one of his central insights was that reproduction changes art. Once an image can be photographed, cropped, captioned, detached from its original setting, and endlessly circulated, its meaning is no longer stable. It can be recontextualized, repurposed, commercialized, sentimentalized, politicized, or trivialized. The image travels. The authority of the original setting weakens. The old aura of the object is disrupted. Berger's first episode explicitly drew on Walter Benjamin's analysis of mechanical reproduction to make precisely this point. Well, look where we are now. The reproduced image has not merely entered daily life. It has become the atmosphere of daily life. Images no longer interrupt reality. They mediate it. We meet ourselves through them, desire through them, politics through them, beauty through them, and increasingly, morality through them. A person now often learns what to feel by first learning how the thing looks. This is a very dangerous condition for a civilization to inhabit. Because when images become the primary medium through which reality is interpreted, those who shape images begin to shape not only taste, but consciousness. Berger understood this in embryo. We live inside its empire. Take his analysis of publicity, what we would now lazily call advertising. Berger argued that advertising does not simply sell products, it sells envy. It manufactures dissatisfaction, then offers symbolic relief. It tells you that you are incomplete, and then offers an image in which your completed self appears. Glossier, more admired, more desirable, more envied. Publicity creates a gap between who you are and who you might be if only you bought correctly. That was Berger's point then, and it feels almost embarrassingly true now, because modern advertising has escaped the billboard and entered the bloodstream. It is now fused with identity, aspiration, politics, sexuality, selfhood. You are no longer merely sold products. You are sold versions of yourself. Your attention is auctioned all day to people who wish to install desires in you, and then persuade you those desires were born there naturally. Berger helps us puncture that lie. He teaches suspicion without paranoia, criticism without dull academic jargon, and perhaps most importantly, the ability to notice that what appears natural in visual culture is very often ideological. That lesson alone is worth the price of admission. Then there is his analysis of women in European oil painting, one of the most discussed parts of Ways of Seeing. Berger argued that in a great deal of Western art, men act and women appear. Women are taught to watch themselves being looked at. His analysis of the nude had a long afterlife, especially in feminist criticism and later discussions of the gaze. Whatever one makes of later academic inflation on the subject, Berger was identifying something genuinely important, that looking is not only optical, it is social. It arranges power. It decides who is subject and who is object, who surveys and who is surveyed, who acts and who must remain legible to the eye of another. Again, this is not an old problem. It is our problem. The selfie, the influencer, the endless self-curation of digital life. All this has made Berger's question more intimate, not less. We are now not only looked at, we are expected to collaborate in our own visibility. We produce ourselves as images. We pre-interpret our own lives for circulation. We become both prisoner and warden of appearance. And then we wonder why modern identity feels theatrical. Berger would not have been surprised. What makes Ways of Seeing so durable is not that every sentence is sacred or every claim beyond revision. It is durable because it teaches a habit of mind, a form of intellectual vigilance. It says, in effect, when you look, do not only ask what something is, ask what relation of power it encodes. Ask what history has been cropped out. Ask who is being flattered, who is being diminished, who is being trained to desire, and who profits from the arrangement. That is a magnificent education in suspicion. And suspicion, in this context, is not cynicism. It is moral hygiene. For the great danger of image-saturated culture is not that it lies constantly, though it often does. It is that it teaches us to become passive before appearances. We become consumers of the visible, not interrogators of it. We scroll, absorb, compare, envy, react, purchase, perform. And all the while, imagine, we are simply living. Berger's project was to break that spell, to return activity to seeing, to remind us that vision is not neutral reception, but cultural practice. That is why Ways of Seeing still belongs on the shelf of anyone who wants to remain intellectually awake, not because it tells you what to think about every image, but because it makes lazy seeing more difficult. It ruins innocence in the best way. Once Berger has done his work on you, the image no longer arrives alone. It arrives with questions attached. What produced this? What does it assume? What does it conceal? What kind of person does it want me to become? Those are life-saving questions in a civilization increasingly built from surfaces. And here, perhaps, is the deepest reason Berger still matters. He insists that culture is not decorative. It is formative. The way a society sees is inseparable from the way it loves, buys, obeys, desires, and judges. To change vision, then, is not a minor aesthetic exercise. It is to alter the moral and political texture of life itself. That is a large claim. But then Ways of Seeing is a large book, despite its modest size. It looks slim, portable, almost casual. In fact, it is a hand grenade. It asks you to distrust official reverence, to question inherited standards, to notice the commerce hiding inside beauty and the power hiding inside innocence. It asks you to become inconvenient to the visual order around you. And that is why you should read it. Not to become an art theorist, not to repeat fashionable formulas about representation, not to acquire the dreary modern habit of turning every painting into a seminar on oppression. Read it because it will sharpen your eyes. And in an age flooded with images, that is not a luxury. It is self-defense.